Welcome to the Purposes of God. This is a special 30 video PowerPoint presentation of the Tribulation Network. The final video is an addendum to the original 29 videos. I, Doug Krieger, will be your host throughout this dynamic series of videos which will consider the purposes of God in light of the divine measurements recorded in the Scripture of truth, and how those measurements are vested in the sacred cubit measurement of 25.20 inches. Again, this special presentation is extended to you by the Tribulation Network. We can be found on the World Wide Web at www.the-tribulation-network.com. Heaven is my throne, and earth is my footstool. Where is the house that you will build me? And where is the place of my rest? For all those things my hand has made, and all those things exist. Isaiah chapter 66, verses 1 and 2. All things were made through him, and without him nothing was made that was made. John chapter 1, verse 3. The index to the purposes of God is quite extensive. Video number 1, we will continue our introduction to the topic. Video 2 will be an introduction of Sir Isaac Newton's quest for Prisca Sapientiam and Prisca Theologia. Video 3, we're going to be discussing the 2520 or the 25.20 inch sacred cubit and the topic, the handwriting on the wall, with regards to the demise of the Neo-Babylonian king Belshazzar during Daniel's experience with him and in Babylon. Video 4, we will continue with Sir Isaac Newton, the man of science and prophecy. Also in video 5, the sacred cubit and the statute mile and the British promotion, discovery, and the prosecution thereof. In video 6, we'll go into the nautical mile and a little bit more on the sacred cubit. Video 7 and video 8, we will be discussing the distance and time measurements from Jerusalem's Temple Mount to the Gentile world capitals and other events among the Gentile world powers in their relationship to Jerusalem's Temple Mount. In video 9, we'll be discussing time and distance in the ministry of Jesus in the Middle East. Video 10, we're going to be talking about the relationship of the United States of America, in particular Washington, D.C., and New York City and their locations, juxtaposed to that of the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. In reference to that, we'll be discussing issues regarding the earth, the moon, and the sun and their relationship to both. In video 11 and 12, we'll be talking about the constellation Draco and the 12 houses of the zodiac. In relationship to Draco, we'll be giving reference to the biblical account of the dragon's tail, the number 666, and the age of Aquarius, which we affirm could very possibly commence in the year 2012. Videos 13 and 14 will be an introduction, because later on at the end of our series, videos 27, 28, and 29, we'll go into more depth about the Great Pyramid at Giza. But here we will be discussing the Great Pyramid at Giza and its peculiar relationship to the apocalypse, to the end of days. In video 15 and 16, we will be discussing the years 2012, 2016, and 2018 and 19. And if you do your math a little bit here, you'll notice that between the age 2012, the year 2012, and 2018-19 is approximately 7 years. This alludes to Daniel's 70th week and the 7-year time frame with that week. And in the middle of that week will be the event known as the Abomination of Desolation. At the end of the week, we'll be entering into the year of Jubilee. And this will be in videos 15 and 16. In video 17 and 18 and 19, we will be discussing the measurements of the New Jerusalem, the moon, the earth, and the sun in parts 1 and 2. And then in part 3 of the measurements of the New Jerusalem, we will connect them to the Pillar of Enoch, the Great Pyramid of Giza. That will be part 3 regarding these measurements. In video 20, 21, and 22, we will be considering the measurements of the Ark of the Covenant and the Temple of Solomon, and in their relationship to the fourth temple of Ezekiel found in Ezekiel chapters 40 through 48. That will be parts 1, 2, and 3 of the measurements of the Ark of the Covenant and the Temple of Solomon and their interrelationship with the fourth temple, the temple found in Ezekiel chapter 40 through 48. In videos 23 through 26, we will go into an in-depth presentation of the millenarian temple found in Ezekiel chapters 40 through 48. That will comprise, again, videos 23, 4, 5, and 6. Videos number 27, 28, and 29, we will be discussing further reflections on the Great Pyramid of Giza, parts 1, 2, and 3. Finally, there is an addendum, video number 30, with regards to the measurements of the tabernacle in the wilderness, also known as the Tabernacle of the Testimony or the Tent of Meeting. Special appreciations to Dean McGriff for editing, Rod Brace for technical input, and Guy Mitz for web assistance. This is a dedication page. This presentation is dedicated posthumously to Queen Elizabeth I of England, who lived between 1533 and 1603, and whose accession to the throne at age 25 led her to quote Psalm 118. "It is the Lord's doing, and it is marvelous in our eyes." That statement was made on November the 20th, 1558. Even in this, her destiny to give birth to the Church of England and to the King James Version of the Bible, which was compiled between 1604 and 1611, astounds in that she, at the age of 25, on the 20th of November, preserves in her ascendancy the sacred cubit, which she and the British so assiduously sought after and preserved in Scripture, the 25.20 inches of the sacred cubit. Yes, this is the Lord's doing, and it is marvelous in our eyes. The purposes of God. To illuminate those geometric and mathematical truths embedded in the Scripture of truth, which highlight major prophetic themes past, present, and future. Especially pertinent to the purposes of God are those themes dealing with creation, Noah's Ark, the Great Pyramid of Giza, or Enoch's Pillar, the Exodus from Egypt, the Ark of the Covenant, the four temples of Israel, including Solomon's, Ezra and the Herodian, that is the second temple, the future third temple committed to Daniel's 70th week, and the fourth temple or millenarian temple as discussed in Ezekiel 40 through 48, and finally the New Jerusalem, as well as the Temple Mount and its relationship to Gentile world powers. All of the above are essential as to their measurements to the solar system, to one another, and to the ultimate purpose of the dimensions of paradise, the New Jerusalem. The spiritual conflict of the ages, the church's struggle with the principalities and powers in heavenly places, as seen in the zodiac, Draco's tail, and other heavenly bodies. Prophetical implications regarding Israel's place in history, past, present, and future, and the church's relationship with Israel. What are the purposes of God alluded to in Daniel chapter 12 and verse 4, which are destined to become great and increase at the end of time by those who search anxiously through the scripture of truth unto the coming of the Son of Man? In video 1, we will be giving a brief introduction to the purposes of God. The heavens declare the glory of God, and the expanse of heaven the work of his hands. Their line has gone out through all the earth, and their words to the end of the world. In them he has set a tabernacle for the sun, which is like a bridegroom coming out of his chamber. Its rising is from one end of heaven, and its circuit to the other end. The heavens declare his righteousness, and all the people see his glory. Psalm 19 and Psalm 97:6. And the teachers and those who are wise shall shine like the brightness of the firmament. Those who turn many to righteousness, to uprightness and right standing with God, shall give forth light like the stars forever and ever. But you, O Daniel, shut up the words and seal the book until the time of the end. Then many shall run to and fro and search anxiously through the book, and knowledge of God's purposes, as revealed by his prophets, shall be increased and become great. Daniel 12:3 and 4 from the Amplified Version of the Scriptures. Bear with us now. This is an acknowledgments page, but our profound appreciation to so many who have over the years contributed to these prophetic impressions. In particular, we wish to express our appreciation for the contributions of David Flynn, Dr. Gavin Finley, L. Leroy Neff, Thomas Horn, Lambert Dolphin, Lean Rittmeyer, Asher Kaufman, Tony Badello, the Temple Institute in Jerusalem, and for all those whose love for the Almighty's purposes in creation through time and space continue to inspire this author until Messiah shall come to his holy temple. Sincerely, Doug Krieger, myself with my colleague, Dean McGriff. All these various numbers, 7, 144, 666, 1948, 33.33, 12,000, 2520. I put all these numbers here on this one page just to highlight the many different numerical issues that we're going to be getting into during our studies. And hopefully by the time we're finished, you'll become a lover of mathematics. But beyond that, you'll find the absolute one behind these absolute expressions. The numerically created universe. This is a quote from John Michell from his text, The Dimensions of Paradise, Sacred Geometry, Ancient Science, and the Heavenly Order on Earth. Dr. Michell is considered one of the most foremost Gnostic intellects of our time. His efforts to make known the visions, the laws, and the numbers held within pure geometry, and which integrate earth and sky, movement and form, cosmos and mankind, are remarkable in many ways. However, and interestingly enough, coming from the British tradition in these matters, he was either ignorant or purposefully obscured the measurements of England's sacred cubit measurement, the 25.20 inches formalized under Queen Elizabeth I and celebrated by none other than Sir Isaac Newton. But first, this profoundly significant statement by this otherwise brilliant Eton and Cambridge educated researcher and specialist in the field of ancient and traditional science, who has authored scores of texts on science and metaphysical subject matter as well. At some very early period, by a process quite beyond explanation, certain groups of numbers were brought together. Thus was created that numerical standard or canon of proportion, and was everywhere attributed to some form of miraculous revelation. It was taken to be the nucleus and activating principle of number generally, a summary of all the types of progressions and relationships that occur within the field of number, and thus a faithful image of the numerically created universe. John Michell. From Sir Isaac Newton's text Observations upon the Prophecies of Daniel and the Apocalypse of St. John. This prophecy is called, that is, the book of Revelation, with respect to the scripture of truth which Daniel was commanded to shut up and seal till the time of the end. Daniel sealed it until the time of the end, and until that time comes, these prophecies of Daniel and John should not be understood till the time of the end. But then some should prophesy out of them in an afflicted and mournful state for a long time, and that but darkly, as to convert but few. But in the very end the prophecy should be so far interpreted as to convince many. Then saith Daniel, many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall be increased. The occult and Gnosticism versus the sacred cubit, and we've alluded to this already. Though the Gnostics and pagan occult probe the depths of sacred numerology, they, as John Michell, perhaps their chief proponent in the modern era, have inadvertently or purposefully, equivalent to intellectual fraud as far as this author is concerned, obfuscated the dimensions of the sacred inch and sacred cubit, 25.20 inches, with its imperial mile, 5,280 feet. Our standard is the infallibility of the divine imprimatur within the scripture of truth, the Old and New Testaments. Paganism's deceits will not constitute an obdurate barrier to the knowledge of God's purposes as revealed by his prophets. They shall be increased and become great at the end of days. Alluding to Daniel 12:4 again from the Amplified version of the Scriptures. This familiar figure of the Star of David, also known as the Shield of David, and Magen David, concludes our first video presentation. What you're looking at here is a triangle over the top of another triangle. These are both equilateral triangles. This familiar impression here is actually a major prophetical statement in and of itself. As you can see, 6 equilateral triangles have been created by placing one of these triangles over the other. Each of these equilateral triangles has a 60-degree angle. Comprised together constitute 180 degrees. The adjacent supplementary angle that is formed as a result of the intersection of the lines is a 120-degree supplementary angle that is formed. The number of equilateral triangles are 6, and 6 times 180 degrees will give us 1080 degrees. The 12 supplementary angles that have been created of 120 degrees each, adjacent to the 60-degree angles, will equal 1,440 degrees. And by the way, that 144 is a significant number in relationship throughout the entire scriptures, ultimately leading us to the New Jerusalem. The total degrees in the Magen David, or the Shield of David, or the Star of David, when we add the 1080 and the 1440 together, come to the number of the sacred cubit, 2520. 2520 is the signature of completion of the Almighty's plans found in prophecy and geometry of the temple, the ark, and creation. Again, I'm your host, Doug Krieger of the Tribulation Network. This concludes video number 1, and we'll now go on to video number 2 in this special series of the Tribulation Network's The Purposes of God.